Hello! This is probably the final update to the Stop Killing Games campaign. Though I'm coming at you a little bit like a time traveler would. It'll make sense in a minute. As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers. Now, we've gone about this in many ways, but it's easiest to divide this up by things we've already done and things we can still do, because there's about a dozen things we've already done. Yeah, in fact, here's a list if you want to pause this. Going over this again will be a video in itself. I'll talk more about some of this towards the end. So that just leaves things we can still do, which are only 2 items. One is for the UK to sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though, keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government response has been a mess by every definition. It's a long and boring story, but the short version is it's hit a bureaucratic roadblock and will stay stuck unless it gets more signatures. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so I think it could change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. So I figure, why wait until they actually do to tell people? Both the petitions end in July. The Citizens Initiative in particular on July 31st. This video probably won't change the timeline, it's just a last-ditch attempt to wake people up on it. The European Citizens the timeline, it's just a last-ditch attempt to wake people up on it. The European Citizens Initiative failing kind of stings. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures from citizens of EU countries, and we've only made it just under halfway. That's really too bad, because I have high confidence this would have solved the problem of publishers destroying video games. Now, why do I say that? What a lot of people don't realize is that in the EU especially, it's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction. Okay, I don't want to put people to sleep here, but the quick legal argument is that the vast majority of games with an online requirement say they can be terminated at any time for any reason. Or Blizzard likes to say any or no reason. But according to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms in consumer contracts. So So if that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void. And if it's null and void, then what does the law say about how long your purchase lasts? Well, it doesn't. That's the whole mess. So if there are no legal guidelines, what are consumer expectations for how long video games last? Well, indefinitely. Even the average online multiplayer video games from the 90s can still work today if you didn't change the hardware or software. So the law wasn't written for this situation, the industry's terms might possibly be illegal, and traditional expectations are games last indefinitely. Now, of course, publishers can't support games indefinitely, but by not giving expiration dates or end-of-life plans, that might be the situation they've put themselves in. I cannot emphasize enough what a mess this is. If you were an impartial judge just trying to interpret the law, you'd have a headache. I don't know what you would do. You'd probably tell the EU Commission they need to make a law on this because this is a glaring omission. So being in the middle of this quagmire right now, if we had rolled up with 1 million signatures demanding that the EU give us basic consumer rights for video games, that would have been the easy way out for regulators, because then they would have a mandate. That's what I meant about my half-joke slide about politicians liking easy wins. This situation is such a mess that trying to settle this under existing law is more work than creating laws under a consumer mandate. And thanks to the action we've pushed at consumer protection agencies, doing nothing is no longer an option for multiple countries. We've made sure of that. But none of that matters because the initiative is failing. Now, my original thought was that ironically, it's difficult to get gamers to care about games because a whole lot of people are cruising at maximum apathy these days. But I think it's more than that. For most of the past year, the initiative has bounced back and forth between being the third and second most popular active initiative in the EU. The only ones that topped it were far more serious social issues. So that says to me, the problem isn't getting gamers to care about games, it's getting people to care about anything. And frankly, that is a checkmate move. If people can't care enough to write their name on a form to protect their rights and stop things they care about from being destroyed, then yeah, I can't do much with that. I am not a Care Bear that can shoot light out of my stomach to make people give a damn. Plus, it's hard to know how many people don't care and how many never knew about the initiative in the first place. It's certainly not for a lack of trying. I have tried to push this everywhere I can, though I'm an amateur at all of this. I have a medium-sized YouTube channel for making comedy videos involving gaming. That's it for my advantages. Now, I've tried to leverage this to push the initiative, get as much help as possible, but I've never been great at marketing and networking, stuff you need on a campaign. Yeah, in fact, I never wanted to do any of this. I've been beating the drum on the problem of game destruction going on 10 years now, but the problem only got worse and worse and nobody was doing a damn thing about it. So when the opportunity to do something finally presented itself, in the form of the biggest game shutdown from a European company, I pounced on it as hard as I could. So I've hated doing almost every aspect of this campaign and will be very happy for it to end. But I would have hated myself even more if nobody stepped up to do anything. So in light of that, I think our exposure has been phenomenal. We've gotten a lot of support or just fair coverage from major YouTubers. Some ordinary gamers, Yong Ye, Louis Rossman has been a bro especially. Gamers Nexus, Linus Tech Tips, Game Linked, Philip DeFranco, Asmongold, Black Panther, Second Wind, including Yahtzee and the other Frost, Spawn Wave, Civi 11, Mandalore Games, Bellular News, Digital Foundry, Josh Strife Hayes, Tech Tangents. Honestly, it goes on and on. I'm leaving out a lot of people. My apologies on that. We've gotten game news outlet coverage. PC Gamer, IGN, Rock Paper Shotgun, Kotaku, TechSpot, Eurogamer, PC Games N, Destructoid, Game Rant. There's more. And regular news outlets, Metro, Euronews, Variety, Forbes. Also many non-English outlets for France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Hungary. There's a lot. And some developers. Running with Scissors, Landfall Games, Mala Industria Games, Octay, those awesome guys, and developers of emulators like Dolphin, PCSX2, and PPSSPP, and some more indie developers I may have lost track of, I'm sorry. And this last one is hearsay, but it's my favorite if true. Developers from Ubisoft Ivory Tower. The people who made The Crew, which is the game we used to get all this action rolling in the first place. Yeah, it turns out a lot of developers who spend years of their lives working on something don't like seeing it destroyed by publishers. Who'd have thought? And I've been saying yes to almost all offers for interviews, questioning, or any kind of outreach opportunities that came our way. I honestly don't know how many interviews I've done on this issue at this point. It's easily dozens, though not all of them were on video. One was even for BBC Radio. And then there would be the spontaneous offers that would pop up throughout the entire campaign, like working with members of European Parliament to push through questions to the EU Commission, having meetings with the BEUC as another route to the EU Commission, meetings with representatives from GOG. That one was looking promising until they fired the representatives we were talking with, then backpedaled. That sucked. Meetings with representatives from Heineken. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. Heineken, of all companies, supports the initiative because it ties in well with some gamer lounge campaign they have going. That one was going to be a huge boost for us, but they ended up having to postpone it a year, which is too late. I've had meetings with Fudo, F-Camp. Probably the funniest of these was another member of European Parliament who is also on the Committee on Culture and Education. Their staff reached out to me, set appointments, canceled, then kept having to reschedule 3 times. And this is all on top of the day-to-day outreach, organizing, and just basic communication with God knows how many people. Again, I've hated doing this because I have to fight all my instincts not to bother people. I hate being a pest, but you kind of have to do some of that when campaigning. At this point, I've written a couple thousand emails connected to the campaign, trying to do outreach, research, and just keeping things together. I haven't done that much on Twitter because I don't have much of a presence there. Same goes for Reddit. Yeah, Reddit. I received so many reports of promotions of the initiative being deleted, and some of the ones that stayed up are some of the most hostile to the initiative that I've seen. Yeah, isn't Reddit just a wonderful place to be nowadays? We did get a Discord launched where people could independently organize, so I wouldn't be bottlenecking anything if others had better ideas on what to do. I believe currently they're trying to contact TV stations about this in Europe, something I never would have had a clue how to do. That's exactly the sort of thing I was hoping would emerge. Yeah, I really want to emphasize that from the second the initiative launched, nothing had to go through me. It's been there, in public, this entire time, with easy multilingual guides at StopKillingGames.com. We blazed a trail to make it easy for others to act on this, but that wasn't enough. So it feels like I've been running a rickshaw carrying people to the destination to save games, except it's breaking down halfway. The work on this has never stopped. I never wanted my involvement on the campaign to last this long. I kept hoping after launch, somebody with more reach and better at campaigning could just point people to the destination and get it done. But no, I've had to keep hauling that rickshaw. Not every week, but there have been many weeks on the campaign where I've been working 12 to 14 hours a day to keep things moving to get signatures. And the only way I was even able to do that was to burn some of my savings and put everything else on hold. I've been kind of stupid about this because it's our only shot. Again, this is an amateur effort. That means there's no staff and no salary. So if I need help with something and ask a volunteer to help with it and they disappear on me, well, then they disappear on me and I need to do it myself. Or if I can't, then I need to hunt down someone else to help with it and hope they don't disappear on me. Meanwhile, my channel has been suffering, as my viewers can tell you. I'm stretched too thin. Now, I have been maybe fairly criticized for not running a fundraiser for this. There are reasons for that. The first is, until recently, I didn't know where we would spend it. People would say, buy ads, but the initiative could be considered political, and YouTube doesn't allow political ads in a lot of EU countries, and neither does Twitch. Good luck reaching gamers without YouTube or Twitch. So taking money with no plan, that's a grift. And another reason is I am one of the worst people to manage that sort of thing. Financial paperwork is an Achilles heel of mine and seems to take me 10 times more effort than anything else. I mean, I can do accounting, budgeting, math, that's not a problem. No, I mean having knowledge of all the obscure forms you need to fill out, what all the tax laws that apply are, what all the specialized terminology is, and just all the hidden rules. Now you might say just hire an international tax accountant for multiple countries. Okay, there goes a third of our funding then. So what are we even doing? I cannot emphasize how much I struggle with financial business crap like that. So the thought of me putting together a fundraiser for what might be considered a political fund that needs to adhere to laws in multiple countries, and if I make a mistake that could be considered a crime? Oh, no. That's like asking somebody with severe dyslexia to write a book report on war and peace. I am the wrong person for that job. But I've still been trying, to the best of my ability anyway. I didn't discover this until late in the process that even though general ads were out, sponsored messages were still an option for some countries. And some mysterious benefactors emerged offering to pay them directly. But that means I needed to find all these channels and broker all these deals. So as a last-ditch effort, I've been looking through hundreds of targeted non-English gaming channels trying to find good candidates for this. Then work with bilingual liaisons for each language, then try to put together a contract and figure out what a good offer is for the amount of views we expect. I am so out of my depth on this, but I'm still trying. At this point, I've browsed through more clickbait AI-generated thumbnails than I have the entire rest of my life. I honestly can't decide which part of the campaign I've hated the most. Acting as an advertising broker, not knowing our budget or what's a good offer, or trying to research laws governing this practice that don't exist, except I didn't know that at the time. So how are these sponsored ads going? Are they going to get us the signatures? As of recording this, I don't know. It's a Hail Mary pass as it is. I'm just going to assume it won't, and I'm completely spent on ideas on how to get more signatures. I did everything I possibly could to make this campaign work. It wasn't enough. Or rather, I did everything that made sense to me. I did receive a lot of suggestions of things I do not think would have worked. A bunch of people told me to make short form videos on this. I tried that. They got a fraction of my usual views. I've been told make more videos on my channel saying the same thing. But lots of views on my channel doesn't help if it's all the same audience, because people can only sign once. We have to reach new audiences. I've been told become a full-time streamer. I might consider it if I thought it would work, but I don't. I've been told I should have made a bigger deal about countries crossing minimum thresholds. Well, I didn't want to celebrate that because that's an arbitrary number. They're the minimums. All that really matters is that 1 million number, and we're a long ways away. Now, another suggestion has been to make a plea to big gamers, like PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, Moist Critical, Markiplier, anyone like that. Well, yeah, I think that might be a great idea. Our biggest obstacle in the campaign has always been getting enough exposure, and they have exposure. I think any one of them could end this with one video and change gaming history. Problem is, I have no idea how to reach any of them. Plus, I can understand if they might shy away from this. First, they're probably busy people. But second, they may not want the kind of heat that comes with changing gaming history, even if it's for the better. And third, if they back this, then 1 million people might mob them to back something else, and then there's no end to it. So I actually can understand some people wanting to sit this out. I mean, yeah, it really sucks that we can't get enough attention on this badly needed change in the games industry, but I'm not shocked either. Honestly, I'm already punching way above my weight class on this. My main promotion video for it got a little under 250,000 views, and about 15% of my audience is from EU countries who are eligible to sign. So that means I shouldn't have expected much more than 30 to 40,000 signatures from my audience, and we're over 10 times that. It's almost like a lot of people out there don't like having their games destroyed. Anyway, most of the criticism I've seen for how I've run this campaign kind of comes down to be more popular. Yeah, sure, maybe everybody else knows how to do that. I don't. I kind of view that critique as similar to don't be poor financial advice. And that's from people who support the campaign. For all the support and fair coverage we've received, there's been some opposition too. Though I want to say 80, maybe even 90% of people who are against the initiative are against it because they think it's doing something it's not. For example, the #1 criticism about the initiative that we've never been able to shake is that it's unworkable because you can't expect publishers to support games forever. Yeah, we know. That's why we've never asked for that. I must have said this 100 times now. It was written on the website from day one, but this keeps coming up over and over again. See, that's the thing. As soon as you say 3 words on requiring end-of-life plans, gamers especially will jump to some conclusion, and I never know where they're going to land. Ironically, non-gamers tend to be much better at understanding the initiative, because they're not coming with a whole bag full of assumptions. A couple other criticisms are how this would violate copyright law by forcing publishers to give up their intellectual property. No, it wouldn't. Some of you may want to pause this part. Or how this won't work because of end-user license agreements. That's also not a problem. Or how this isn't possible because publishers already have agreements with other companies and don't have the rights to distribute that code. We're aware of that. Yes, the initiative is still possible. Those are the ones I've seen most organically. Beyond that, there is a clear patient zero where others come from. Okay, I really don't want to do this next part, but it's become a liability for the campaign for me not to. Our biggest critic by far is YouTuber and streamer PirateSoftware, who goes by Thor. If your only exposure to Stop Killing Games has been this video, then you've been misinformed. This video is by someone who does not understand the campaign, has been trying to stop it, and has been making up what it is about. I am not saying that lightly. I will prove it in a minute. Now you might be thinking, okay, so some YouTuber got something wrong on the internet. So what? See, that was my thinking too. The problem is how incredibly influential this YouTuber has been. Remember that list of coverage on the campaign? Well, best I can tell, Thor's coverage has been bigger than literally anyone else on those lists, except Asmongold. And the only video Asmongold had on this bigger than Thor's was about Thor's video. So for all practical purposes, Thor here has been the #1 voice on the campaign, and he's been lying about what it is. That's a bit loaded though. In this case, I'm using the second definition of lie. I have no evidence it's the first. This video came out right as we were building momentum, then except for one boost in Germany, the signatures started drying up like clockwork. This put me in kind of a no-win scenario too. Because if I ignored it, then a lot of people are going to get misinformed about the campaign. But if I did a response video, which is not something I wanted to do anyway, then it might look like drama farming, which could understandably turn off a lot of people from the campaign, because it's not about that at all. So I quickly made this video trying to clear up all misconceptions and concerns about the initiative, with timestamps for everyone's questions, hoping the truth would eventually come out. I can see now that was a mistake. I should have just embraced the drama. To this day, I'm still getting frequent comments and emails about the same falsehoods about the campaign that originated in this video. Well, now I have nothing to lose. If we don't get the signatures, then none of this matters anyway. So if this campaign is failing because of me not talking about this, then I'll at least correct history here on the way down. I'll get this over with and go over what I think are the biggest points of Pirate Software's videos. I'm not going to go over everything because collectively Thor has made hours of video on both me and the movement. I'd be here forever. Believe me, I could address smaller things too, and kind of already have. Alright, let's start. Okay, point number 1. Thor does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives is basically we don't want single-player games to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them. And as much as they want it to be about specifically games where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists, instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. This is what I mean. It's harder for gamers to understand this because they come with so many assumptions. It's like that saying about doctors being the worst patients. So let's clear this up. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative. Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support. The long version depends on what kind of transaction is being made. As you can see, it's not easy to explain in a soundbite. But if you notice, we don't make a distinction between single-player and multiplayer games. That's because the law doesn't either. So why make this even harder? Both the movement and the law are making distinctions on how games are sold. Also, that part he said about it affecting all live service games? Yes and no. It would affect most live service games in the future, but the initiative is not retroactive. So that's one thing Thor doesn't understand, but he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single player. Once again, he made that up, and I have no idea why he thought that.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single-player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single-player, rebuilding everything in the entire game. How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy XIV? You're just going to make all the raids soloable? Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game. That's what they're asking for.
No.
Because they would have to sunset live service games as a single-player experience. The idea that suddenly you need to make every single live service game playable single-player offline? No, dude.
Correct. No. This one is particularly baffling to me because I've heard most counter-arguments before, but until Thor, I've never heard this one. That we want the industry to convert all multiplayer games into single-player ones. I keep saying it, you never know where gamers are going to take this.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games.
Oh, he's so close. He's so close to getting it.
It is vague, and because of that, it will impact.
He never has that light bulb moment. Well, he is correct in that statement. It's almost as if that's not what the initiative is asking for. But those were his streams with a smaller audience. What does he say in his big YouTube video with over 1 million views that he had time to research?
If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single-player experience, and then taking away support in the future.
Now he's changed it again and is making up how it's about single-player games are advertised. What is he doing?
It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies that are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem.
No, that's not it at all.
And there are some people that'll say, well, just make it all single-player.
Like
well,
you?
I've explained that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single-player, you'd have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. These are two different ideologies, and that's okay to have two different ideologies. I just won't agree with it.
But those aren't the ideologies. Nothing in the initiative is asking to convert games to single player.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single player games.
Yeah, so why does he keep bringing it up? This is a total red herring.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them existing. We're against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer. Just use logic. He's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them existing. We're against them being destroyed. With no recourse for the customer. Just use logic. If we didn't like them in the first place, why would we care if they're being destroyed? He says he gets it, but he doesn't.
Let's talk about the actual bad business practices. In the case that a studio is making a live service game and they sell it to you as a product, they say that you are purchasing the game or you are buying the game, when in reality you're actually purchasing or buying a license to that game. I think that we should be fighting about that. The initiative is not trying to call that out specifically. It's trying to say that all games need to stay in a functional, playable state.
Yes!
Which is not calling out the language that is being used to manipulate the player. Call that out specifically.
Okay, I don't know if he's doing this intentionally. I'll be charitable and assume he's not. But this is some serious obfuscation. He's complaining that the initiative isn't focused on another topic he made up. I mean, what is that logic? Hey, the initiative doesn't address how Capcom changed the look of Dante in the Devil May Cry reboot either. That may as well be what he's saying there. I am not aware of a game on the planet with a license agreement that says you are not buying a license. Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason. That sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms are so hostile to consumers and the medium that they should be taken off the table entirely. This needs regulation. Forget video games. If you look at basic commerce for hundreds of years, when you paid money, you either got to keep what you paid for, or if it was a service, you were told when your access ends. The vast majority of online-only games do neither of those. The games industry is trying to upend basic commerce. I think you have to go back to feudalism before neither of those things are true. Why even have consumer laws if you have no rights?
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no! He wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever. He was literally watching the video earlier where it says it won't do that in big letters. That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers from going there, even when we spell it out. I admit, guys, this part hurts. To see the biggest voice on this issue get it wrong again and again and again, then put that same wrong information on blast to a far bigger audience than we can reach. It hurts. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what we're asking for. Now, to be fair, it sounded like he was getting a little closer in this video. Yeah, despite being called 2, it's at least the 4th video he did on this.
You want that to stay in a functional playable state. That means the devs have to release either server binaries or somehow carve off the game to be a single-player experience now.
That's better, but he's still talking about converting the single player right to the end. He never completely got it. So PirateSoftware did not understand the initiative. Maybe still doesn't. That means the majority of his critique is about things it would not do, like kill all MMOs.
If that passes, enjoy never playing an MMO again for the rest of your life and taking away from every other person that plays MMOs.
It really wouldn't. And I've explained why in that video, but the short version is companies would have to stop liking money for that to happen. Lots of money. But his number one criticism is that he thinks the initiative is vague.
Incredibly vague. Too vague. Very vague. Damn vague. It's vague. It's vague. That is vague. Too vague. Vaguely written. Vague. Incredibly vague. Vaguely worded. Vague. 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 This is vague.
This goes on. Well, from Thor's perspective, his logic is pretty sound for this part. But the thing about logic is it's only as good as your assumed truths. And he's said multiple times now that he thinks the initiative is only about single-player games. So since he's expecting the thing he made up, but that's not what the initiative is asking for, he thinks it's vague. Because for him, it is.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games. It is vague.
Yeah, in fact, if we look at that long definition again, let's add a subsection just for Thor. Single-player games with an online DRM check. Those would already fall under this broader category. So Thor is expecting this. Again, I don't know why, but instead he's seeing an initiative that covers all of this. That's why he calls it vague 50 times. The thought that we want what we're asking for and not the thing he made up seems to have never entered his head. The initiative is trying to stop the destruction of games. That's the whole point. It covers the types of games most in need of saving. If we only covered this tiny subsection, that would save maybe 1% or less of games that get destroyed. This would do almost nothing. I'm not saying there isn't one, but I literally can't think of a game that meets this criteria. Every game I know of with single-player content that's been destroyed has been designed to run server-side, not locally. Older ones like that tend to have the DRM cracked, which is not an ideal solution, but that does stop game destruction. And newer ones with the Nuvo or something tend to have it removed by end of life. So I say less than 1%, but this might save 0% of games. I'm not sure. The initiative is actually not that vague. Though to be fair, some people did get hung up on this part. A reasonably playable or functional state. True, that is not 100% specific. There are reasons for that. You know how in law, police can stop a suspect with reasonable suspicion? Or a jury finds someone guilty beyond all reasonable doubt? That's because the number of situations you face are so varied that the law has to inject some common sense somewhere. It's the same with games. A multi-million-dollar MMO is a different animal from a budget arena shooter. It won't work making highly specific laws. That's one half of it. The other half of it is this sentence is an olive branch to publishers. I've heard complaints this isn't specific enough. Okay, but you know what the alternative to this would be? Here, I'll show you. The game must be fully functional and contain 100% of all features as advertised. So as a publisher, which requirement would you rather meet? More importantly, this sentence shows the EU Commission that we're acting in good faith and trying to find a balance. I think some of the people asking for this to be more specific may not realize what they're asking for. I know some won't believe this, but a hell of a lot of thought went into the wording of the initiative. I think it's almost perfect. See, the initiative isn't even a proposed bill, it's a negotiation. Our side says we want games to be functional when publishers end support, so they need end-of-life plans. The industry's position is going to be against whatever we write and claim they need no regulation whatsoever. Then the EU Commission gets to decide who is more in the right here. The Citizens Initiative is the opening offer in these negotiations. Trust me, the industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars will make its position known to the EU. We don't have to make their case for them. So for this negotiation, simple is good. That's why we're straight and to the point for what we want. Then the industry will argue against that. Then the EU Commission might look for compromises. You don't start a negotiation with a bunch of compromises because then it will get so watered down you won't save anything. Oh, and that long definition list are actually logical extensions of the simpler language used in the initiative. It's actually kind of slick. Plus, there's a character limit on these things. The EU Commission doesn't want you trying to cover 50 edge cases at this phase. Alright, so PirateSoftware did not understand the initiative. But point two, he also did not make it easy for the truth to get out. I had never heard of him prior to all this, but during the campaign, I had dozens of people contacting me telling me how wise and reasonable he is, how he's really pro-consumer and represents developers, and I should really talk to him. Great, let's do it. So this was my first encounter of him.
Oh shit, no, this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. No, eat my entire ass. That the level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I drop the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass. The whole thing. That sounds stupid as shit.
Oh, yeah. I can see why people like him. It's like listening to Mr. Rogers. As you can imagine, we've been less than thrilled that Thor here has become the dominant voice of the campaign, especially when he doesn't understand it. Though I did find the used car salesman part amusing, since if people could read my mind, they would understand how much I dread anything resembling sales or marketing or just trying to push things on people who aren't interested in them. I'm not exaggerating when I said I've hated having to run this campaign.
This is the most uneducated take I have ever seen in games.
Now, as for that one, I do have a bachelor's in criminal justice, which might explain why I'm coming at this from very different angles than he is. You know, focusing on people having rights and checking what consumer law actually says rather than what's most convenient for publishers. Though I think I know where that comment is coming from because I've gotten it before. Here's what I think is happening. Online-only games have a client and a server, but a lot also have middleware that developers don't have permission to distribute to customers, or depend on microservices they have no control over, and the server software isn't even designed to run on a customer system. You can't just cut out the middleware and remove the microservices because they're integrated too deeply. That would still leave the game bricked and could take months to fix and be a lot of work. So I think some devs think we're saying all they need to do is just release the server binaries at end of life and yay, everything is solved. And that's why they think we're ignorant. Well, for some games that could work, but not ones like these. Plus, that's not what we're saying. First off, we're not even mandating the methodology because, again, doing that could run afoul of copyright law. Second, this whole diagram is looking at a game that exists right now and was never designed to have an end-of-life plan. Those might not be salvageable. So what we're saying is let's take a game in the future. No code has been written yet. It's still just a design document. Okay, so we have the client portion as usual. Then we have the server logic. Now we'll bring in our usual middleware and microservice vendors. Nope, stop. Now the EU says we can't just brick customer purchases like we've been doing if we want to sell our games there. So that means we can't keep making all these same deals the way we have been. Now we need to renegotiate with the vendors to allow for an end-of-life build with their software. Or redesign things to make the microservices easier to sever at end of life. And vendors probably will renegotiate. Otherwise, they'll start losing sales to everyone who wants to sell games in the EU. But say a vendor refuses anyway. Then we need to go with vendor B, who will offer EU-compliant solutions because they will be happy to take money away from their competitor, vendor A. Or maybe we need to abandon one of the microservices altogether and come up with an in-house alternative that is compatible with an end-of-life plan. And if the server can't run on consumer hardware, well, maybe now we code it in a way that's more versatile and can be compiled to run a stripped-down version with less features for the customer machine at end of life. Or hey, if that's not doable, then we scrap that, but still give customers some form of server software at end of life because now we've planned for this, and inform them it requires specialized hardware, and they're on their own for getting it working. And these are all just suggestions. The publisher would get to decide how they want to comply. Thor is not alone in developers trashing what I just said. I don't know why, but some of the nastiest insults I've received on the entire campaign have been when I try to explain this is what we're asking for. This part in particular triggers some people to no end.
That video made me actually mad. Like real mad. Not like fake memes mad, like actually mad. Like, I'm actually mad.
Upsetting people is not our goal, by the way. We actually want this transition to be as easy as possible for publishers and developers. However, we are stubbornly against proposals that won't stop commercial games being destroyed. Because that's the whole point. Anyway, you heard Thor's comments for me. In light of that, I think I've been pretty diplomatic. I am just trying to get this initiative passed. If that means I have to get insulted all along the way, okay. So with that in mind, I reached out to him, not expecting to change his mind, but to at least clarify things since he got so much wrong. If you're gonna hate us, at least hate us for what we're actually doing, not for things that are made up about us.
I got a message from Ross. There were many other misunderstandings in your video. It's clear that you hate the initiative, and I doubt I would change that. That is correct. I would encourage you to at least hate it for what it accurately is. I do.
He says that so confidently. Oh yeah, you knocked it out of the park. You understood everything.
In other words, the customer is told explicitly that their access ends at the time of payment. Most live service games do not do this, which could run afoul of EU law. Most is patently incorrect.
Patently incorrect? Okay, for those who don't know much about live service games, that's like saying the Earth isn't round. He says verifiably false things so confidently. If his viewers don't know any better, how can I blame anyone for believing what he says about the initiative when he talks like that? It's incredible. And he does not wish to discuss this with me or anyone else in the initiative. Why not?
Would you consider reaching out and talking to Ross about it? No. And the reason why is because I found his entire statement over the YouTube incredibly disingenuous.
Yes, this issue which has bothered me since I was a teenager and I've spent 10 years on trying to push back against is me being disingenuous. Where is this coming from? Well, it comes from a slide I had in my promotional video, the half-joke slide. He hated this, and I think he may have a rather privileged view of politics.
You want to put together legislation because it's the right thing to do.
We did!
Not because you can convince legal representatives to do it no matter what.
It's both. These are not mutually exclusive things.
The idea that we're going to go through this because it's an easy win, but not the right win? No, dude.
Oh, God. So he misunderstood the initiative and misunderstood our intentions. And in his words, this is why he refuses to have a dialogue with the movement. So now I have to address it. Let's keep it basic. He calls me disingenuous, implying I don't believe what I'm pushing for, that this is some sort of con. That's uncharitable to the point of being silly. Besides video evidence going back 10 years, this is not a hard concept to grasp. I hate seeing creative works needlessly destroyed when people are trying to save them, and video games are where I see that happen the most. Of course I believe in what I'm advocating for. Maybe start from there. I'm a little surprised that didn't sink in.
The idea of getting it to pass with an easy win instead of pass because it's good is a problem to me. Absolute problem.
That's not how politics works. Do you think things pass because they're good ideas? Tell that to people who still have lead in their water. A lot of gamers are jaded with good cause. The industry has been shaking them down every which way. The perception that it's hopeless to protect our rights against billion-dollar conglomerates is often correct. If I told people this would pass just because it's a good idea, I wouldn't believe me. This slide is a half joke, but it's also some totally cynical reasons that are often true to let people know we have a chance and this isn't utterly hopeless. Do you think I or most people in the movement give a damn why politicians might pass something good? What we care about is that they pass something good. We don't need them to be true believers, we need them to pass good law. This is as soft as it possibly gets in politics. I think most politicians would find this slide funny. It sounds like he's offended I have a low opinion of the political process. Well, I'm the one in the trenches here. I'm not sure if he's upset at me or just upset at reality. Yeah, I am too. Anyway, he went on to delete my reply to him. Thankfully, someone backed it up, and I figured, okay, he hates this, it was thrust upon him by his viewers, I'll just leave him be. Well, that was a mistake on my part, because then he went on to make more videos about me and the movement, now reaching over 1 million views, still broadcasting the wrong information on us. I guess I'm being petty here, but this is alien thinking to me. Why would you call someone out, then run away from a conversation with them when they say there's a misunderstanding, but then go on to make more videos calling them out? Sir, that is not gentlemanly behavior. Alright, I know this is going on too long, so I'll get to the final point. Here, videos calling them out. Sir, that is not gentlemanly behavior. Alright, I know this is going on too long, so I'll get to the final point. Thor misunderstood the initiative, misunderstood our intentions, and misinformed a lot of people about both. But the irony is, I think he would have hated it even more if he did understand it. Because first, he doesn't see any of this as a problem.
Gaming isn't in need of saving. No, it's not a form of planned obsolescence. It's called the game no longer being profitable and we turned it off. No games are being destroyed here. These are live service games.
Yeah, you heard him. No games are being destroyed. Does he just say anything? Is that why he's popular? More to the point, and what I wish he included in his main video, is he supports games being destroyed.
A very strange demand from people in the gaming industry where live service games should live forever, whether in the hands of the developer or otherwise. And I can't get behind that shit. I think live service games getting sunsetted is fine. I've always thought that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I have no problems with the end of a video game.
See, I wish he started his big YouTube video with that message instead of deleting it. Instead, he presented himself as pro-preservation and not wanting the medium to die out.
It's incredibly important to me that we keep making games and that the next generation has the tools to do so that our medium doesn't die out. And it never will. And that's the whole intention of all of this.
So he doesn't want games to die out, except he's fine with that. I think there's some cognitive dissonance going on there. And he's against killing single-player games that only have a DRM check, okay? But then says people who buy single-player games with more than a DRM check are stupid, and he doesn't play those.
I don't buy games that are always online single-player games. I refuse to play those because it's stupid.
That's some tough talk coming from a fan of Diablo 4.
It's actually really freaking good, dude. The game's fantastic. Itemization is great. Systems design is great. Storyline has been fantastic. The characters are good. The voice acting is great.
So is he saying he wouldn't have played Diablo 4's single-player campaign if it didn't have forced multiplayer also? Even though he's praising it and appears to be playing solo? Or is he saying that people that just wanted to play Diablo 4 single-player are stupid? I admit I got lost on his stance there, but what's more clear to me is we're not on the same side. Here's a list of some popular games that are all at risk of being destroyed at some time in the future. The Stop Killing Games movement sees any of these being destroyed as a problem, and they're exactly the kinds of games that would start being protected if the initiative passed. Now, a lot of these do have single-player campaigns, but I believe they all require more than a simple DRM check. He says over and over that his problem with the initiative is the wording, and it's vague. But there is no wording he would like that also saves games like these, because he's on the opposite side of this. If he's totally fine with games like these being disabled forever, well, guess what? That's the position of the industry causing this entire problem in the first place. And that's the final point. Thor says he disagrees with how we're going about trying to end game destruction, but he also disagrees with the goal itself. No, wait, I want to be fair. He's only against 99% of it minus that tiny provision he made up. So once you understand that, then of course it makes sense that he's against the Stop Killing Games movement. Because we're trying to stop killing games. Now, if you're in Thor's camp and think killing all these games is fine and are as things should be, okay. Then it's just a values clash. And yeah, you'll hate the initiative too. I'm not trying to tell you otherwise. But if you think you might have been misled about what the initiative is, hey, maybe look at it again. Tell others about it. Help undo some of the damage. There is still time. It closes July 31st. Thor lying about what the campaign is about, remember, second definition, has caused more damage to it than anything else I'm aware of. Now, I've heard some people say, no, it caused a Streisand effect and led to more coverage. Well, if you look at the signature rate, it suggests the opposite. I've also been told a big streamer, like in that group I mentioned earlier, you know, the kind that are so big they could end this, avoided talking about Stop Killing Games because of Thor's take on it. Remember, at the time he did this, PirateSoftware was a well-respected developer looked up to by the internet community for having good takes on gaming. And I was, and still am, the weirdo with no credentials other than not wanting games destroyed. So with Thor being seen as the smartest guy in the room and firmly against the initiative, I think that led some internet figures to not want to touch this, lest they be seen like a fool in the eyes of Thor. Now, as I understand it, that risk may have lowered since then, but it doesn't really matter if nobody else talks about it, because he was there to kill the momentum when we needed it the most, and we never got it back. Okay, that's it on him. I did not enjoy having to do that segment, but I've had to do a lot of things on this campaign I don't like. Believe it or not, my goal was not to tarnish Thor's reputation. That's incidental. I don't care. He can be hailed as a national hero. Whatever. The goal was to expose the damage done to the campaign to try and fix it. I do think he's someone who would have defended the divine right of kings hundreds of years ago, but I don't wish him ill will. On the contrary, I hope he finds some peace of mind. Now you might be thinking, is this campaign really so fragile that one big streamer can sink it just by misrepresenting it? Oh, yeah, it totally is. It's been an uphill battle almost every step of the way. It sinks or swims to the whims of what big streamers do. It kind of reminds me of the Greek gods. That part about easy wins, that's for the politicians, not us. Ours are hard as nails. There are reasons it took me 9 years before I was ever able to actually do anything on this. It's a miracle it's gotten as far as it has. Now, I've seen people ask, if the initiative fails, then what's next? I've tried to explain this before. There is no next. What's next was 1.5 years ago with all those other things we've tried. We're at the final phase now. The European Citizens Initiative is our last possible chance to change anything. See, there are things governments and consumer groups are doing, and then there are things that us, the general public, are doing. After July, I see nothing left for us. So does that mean Stop Killing Games has failed? Well, no, nobody knows yet. We won't know the answer to that for a long time, maybe years. Government moves slowly. The initiative will be what's failed, not everything else. Without the initiative, we still have about 5 other chances for this to work. We have the consumer agencies in France, Germany, and Australia, and possibly help from the BEUC and the UFC Que Choisir, though those are iffier. But all their work is underway. It's out of our hands now. Now, I've heard some say, what if we launch the initiative again? Well, someone else can try that, not me. I tried my absolute damnedest writing off the publicity of the cruise shutdown and barely got halfway. It took a chunk out of my life with almost nothing to show for it. No way am I going to spearhead something like this again. I saw this as my only shot. I took it to the best of my ability. That wasn't good enough. I have no reason to think that doing it again will be successful. On the contrary, I think it would do far worse. Now that doesn't mean I'm being defeatist. I will continue saying yes to almost any opportunity that emerges until July 31st. I have some skepticism, but I am still available for Stop Killing Games until then. Though remember, you don't have to go through me at all. You just have to send people to the initiative. After that, no, I'm done. In fact, I think some people might be surprised just how done I am after July. It's not that I will have changed my mind on game destruction, it's just that there's nothing left after that. So I don't want to waste even more of my life on this. I've paid my dues. My income's dropped significantly since I started this because I haven't had time to make more fun videos which people would rather watch. And I don't blame them one bit. So besides being sick of running this thing, I have to make up for lost time so I can pay rent. Plus, believe it or not, I want time to actually play games and not just fight to keep them all the time. I'll still do the bare minimum if it helps. For example, Germany's consumer agency contacted me at one point because they wanted more information on the cruise EULA for their investigation. So I assisted with that. That was surprising because I have no authority on that at all, and I would have thought they would have had better sources than me, but yeah, I can do pilot light activity like that if it really helps, just no more campaigning. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against people doing more after July. I just think your odds will be horrendous, and I don't want to dump my time into doomed causes. If the law on game destruction in the EU and Australia was as locked down as it is in the United States, I never would have even started this campaign. Now, I've said this initiative resulted in almost nothing. Well, we did get a little bit. For me personally, I got the feeling of knowing I did everything I could, so I won't have any more nagging doubts like, oh, if only I had tried harder, I could have saved video games. No, I can close the book on that. So I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror after this. That's a plus for me and anyone else who tried their best. About the only other thing I think the initiative accomplished was we inadvertently saved 2 games. This is hearsay again, but according to an insider at the company, Ubisoft announced offline modes for The Crew 2 and Motorfest because they were afraid the European Citizens Initiative would pass and thought this might kill some of the momentum. Ironically, I don't think they needed to have bothered. We were already losing momentum when they announced that because, well, you know why. But not killing games is the whole point of this, and I guarantee you Ubisoft had no end-of-life plans for those games prior to this movement. They were absolutely slated to die. Now, if I could have picked any 2 online games to save, I can't say those would have been my choices, but that is something tangible that the initiative changed. Assuming Ubisoft isn't lying. At the time of this video, they still haven't delivered on it yet. So is that it? Is that all the initiative accomplished? Well, without the signatures, sadly, yes, I think so. Now, some people might say, no, we did more than that. We shifted the narrative. So what? My only goal with this was to stop games from being destroyed. All the talk in the world won't fix that without action. Without the initiative, any victory we get is going to come from one of these 5 paths we opened up. Speaking of which, what should we expect from that? I honestly don't know. I give all of these coin toss odds. I do think it is highly, highly likely Ubisoft is going to get fined for something by more than one agency. Don't take my word for it. German channel WBS Legal thinks the same. The problem in their eyes is that Ubisoft shut down The Crew with only 3 months' notice, and they should have provided more like 2 years. Yeah, hear me now, quote me later. If all that comes from Stop Killing Games is companies in the EU need to give 2 years' notice before they shut down a game, then I will consider it an abject failure. It won't save games, that wasn't our goal, it'll piss off companies, everybody loses. But that's the risk of making this work under existing law rather than proposing sensible law under the initiative. Fingers crossed the agencies make a better decision than that. Now, since this is a wrap-up video and I don't know what the outcome will be, I might as well present both scenarios. First, if we win and have a clear victory through one of these avenues, oh boy. If I think I have threats and hate mail now, I bet I haven't seen anything yet. I'd like to say whatever happens because of these avenues, we didn't write them and never had any authority here. All we could do was report the problem. The European Citizens Initiative is what was written by the movement, and that's what's failing. Now, for people who want my head over this, I doubt they'll care, but I wanted to point that out. I'll say right now, the transition could be bumpy. It all depends on how hard the industry fights it. And yes, it's possible it could end some games on death row prematurely. So games that were designed to die could still die, but after that, almost all games would start being protected. Because I know there's some clown that's going to find one example of a game shutting down early and then use that as proof that enforcing the law is bad, even though the industry was going to kill it anyway. That's the logic I'm expecting. So there could be bumps, but give it 3 to 5 years and it will smooth out, become an industry standard, and then you'll have people who were against it claiming they were for it all along. Hey, remember how there were people speaking out against letting customers refund games before 2014, and they're kind of quiet now? I do. I think it'll be a lot like that. So that's if we win. If we lose, in other words, all 5 of these avenues get shot down, well, then things are going to be almost exactly like they are right now. Except then there will be no pretending we have consumer rights. If you're a gamer, it will be codified into law that you're a consumer chattel who doesn't deserve to keep what you buy. Or if you're renting, informed of how long you get to rent. So, cool. The games industry brought back one of feudalism's greatest hits. Now, even that reality I consider preferable to what's going on now, because then we at least know we're legally screwed. Besides the obvious, what drove me crazy about this issue and the reason I started this campaign was because in many countries, no laws were ever passed on this. Nobody voted on this. Companies just started taking away your purchases. Nobody stopped them, and it slowly got normalized. It's felt like a coup. So the idea that hundreds of games are being destroyed just because we're letting it happen drove me up the wall. If we're screwed, let's be told that to our faces and not have contradicting laws pretending we have rights. Yeah, that's the one thing I can promise this campaign will deliver, which is answers. There will be no more frog boiling after this. Either the frog hops out of the pot or it's dead. Now, even if we lose 100%, it's not like I'll change my mind on thinking destroying creative works when people want to save them is wrong. I'll probably drift even farther towards trying to save game worlds at least. I made a video about this sort of thing. I'm optimistic about technology assisting with being able to extract environments from games and port them in the future. So hopefully we can salvage more from the ashes that are getting burned down in games. So that's Stop Killing Games. If you're depending on me to save the initiative, then I think it's going to fail. Skill issue, as they say. My only closing thoughts on this is that this is all just so stupid. It's stupid that we didn't have clear laws on this to begin with, that this practice continued for decades without clear laws on it, that it was going to continue without our intervention, that it takes so much work and so many people to even report a violation, that me, a chump YouTuber, was the one spearheading this, that it was easily derailed by a bigger YouTuber convincing gamers that having their games destroyed is a good thing. It's all so stupid. I've heard some people say before that we're on the worst timeline. No, things could be so much worse. I think some people have no idea. But if you were to say we're on the dumbest timeline, I don't know if I could argue against that. See ya.